Hello everyone, myself Dinesh Selvam, and today we will be talking and discussing about the Nepal issue. What is exactly happening in Nepal, and how is the whole situation there like impacting India, its near countries such as China, and also in a global scenario, what and how is it standing in a global situation, its economic implications and everything else. So in this video we are going to learn a lot of things. The Okay, so basically the whole context of the situation I would be explaining in different points. The first is what is the present scenario, what are the stats and what are the basic problems which is happening. And the second would be why is the whole situation being there, what is its implication, like why is it happening, what are the main causes and the reasons. And the third, we are going to talk on how it is affecting its peer countries such as China, India, and on a global scale, what are the changes, what are its economic, political, and every like problems and all which it is facing Nepal. And the fourth, what we will talk is what are its future prospects, what can possibly happen in the future, and what are the possible policies or the changes which should be brought in by the Nepal, present day Nepal, so that it changes in a positive direction. And lastly, we will discuss about some of the few unanswered and some doubtful questions which is not there anywhere in the internet. Just we need this solution for uh, those questions, and we have to use our own analytical and thinking, and main factor is kind of luck for the country because it's very uncertain as per the present situation. Okay, so going on with the first aspect, which is the what is the present situation of Nepal, what is actually happening. So Nepal, what happened is the Gen Z started protesting all of a sudden. And basically all the Gen Z people are someone who is born between 1990s and expand the length to around 2010. So basically this whole age group is who comes under the Gen Z people. So basically Gen Z people started protesting against something, a particular thing, which is basically the Nepal government. And what their point or the aspect was is they banned the use of the social media, like many social media platforms such as X, uh, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, like all these stuff. So basically they banned, the Nepal government banned approx like 26 of the social media platform all of a sudden. And it was a huge implication throughout the country, which had a obviously had a huge impact. As we can see, all the Gen Z people came out on the roads and started protesting against it. So like now the protest is going on, everyone, the Gen Z people are protesting throughout the country, especially in the capital, which is the Kathmandu. And like protesting fights are going on. The central government, police, as well as the other authorities are maintaining a distance and kind of a proper control over the matter and over the Gen Z. But obviously, like this huge of a population, if all of a sudden they come and attack and have to capture the government in a particular point of time, it is very tough for the government as well as the security force, the police, everything combined as well to control this whole situation. It's kind of a huge people crowd as well as kind of protest, which is actually very tough for the government to handle. So now all these things were happening, a lot of fights, a lot of protest, a lot of allegations and control and speech which is uh, defaming the Nepal government, like what they did, what was the matter, what exactly did that was totally wrong. And the Gen Z people started kind of controlling and like taking the matter into their hands, coming out on the streets, protesting against the Nepal government. And finally, the present, what happened. We will come into this thing, what is presently happening in a later form. Firstly, let us understand why all these things happen. Okay, the main plot or the main thing is the Nepal government banned 26 of the social media platform. But exactly why? Uh, Actually, during 5th of the September, 4th of the September, the Nepal government like banned all these social media platform. Before that, before 7 days approx of, they gave a kind of news or the like notice for these social media platform owners as well as their authorities to make a certain um, like their uh, authority as well as a like a, a communication channel and the people there. So the Nepal government actually asked the social media platforms to uh, register under the 7 days. So basically, they had to requested for a like approval of the liaison office, which is kind of a non-trading agency or a office which is there in a country for executing and like implementation of the company's process in the other outside foreign company. So basically they wanted an office in Nepal itself of these social media platforms, so that it's kind of a better like communication channel, as well as there is no complete like autocratic authority of the social media platform in this particular Nepal country. So this was a particular reason they asked the social media platform to make a liaison office in their form. And also it's kind of a non-trading entity which is of another country, which is made in a particular country. And on the 4th of September, we know this was basically 26 social media platform had been banned. But the main problem here comes is of one doubtful thing, which is kind of China apps, especially if we say of TikTok, it is a China app which was not banned. That is a very strange question. Like, if they are banning all these social media platform, if they don't have a license office, and they gave only a 7 day duration for them to build the office, they like it is practically very tough. It is not even practically tough, it is kind of impossible to uh, like build or like send a like accepted form to the Nepal government under 7 days, that okay, like we will be building or like build a license office in 7 days is like practically impossible. But they gave this kind of request to them, and they knew like it was not practically possible, and still after the 7 days they banned all these social media apps. That was firstly very strange thing. And second, which made it even stranger, is they didn't ban the China apps. China apps, basically, if we say TikTok, they didn't ban the TikTok even though it did not had any license office there. They only banned the American apps. Maybe it's kind of a propaganda spread by the China government on the Nepal. We will look into that in a few minutes. And about these and yeah, one more important thing after this ban, like which was kind of very illogical and very practically, we can say, nonsense ban, like because of a very short duration of notice, and after that they banned, and they did a huge change of like rules and regulations regarding the telecom and communication social media. So basically the digital and the telecom authority of the government, Nepal government, made this rule that these all social media apps had to make a license office all of a sudden. And after that, what happened, I just told you. And on 4th of September, all these banned. And after that, all the protest happened, the Gen Z people came to the roads like around 6 to 7 of September. Big like they captured all the Nepal, they went through the roads and started protesting, and also it was a big change, it was a big move by them. And in the due time, on the 8th of September, they came to the Kathmandu, which is the capital of Nepal. So through that, they went to the public places, they dethroned like all the public places, they thrashed out of, they destroyed the buildings, shops, and everything else. Kind of a non-peaceful massacre, you can say, and it was a very dreadful event. And still, some of the pieces going on here and there in Nepal, and many of the big places such as Pashupatinath, which is kind of a Hindu entity, Shiva, a Shiv entity there, a very prestigious mandir there in Nepal, was kind of like people crawled over that, kind of stole many things from the temple. It was a very sad thing happening. And also another temple which is uh, like a Buddhist temple, so that was also the case. Like they went through many of the places, and through these monuments, through these shops, these malls, they just destroyed everything, went through everything, and like stole from the malls and the shops, like off free of cost. And these all things were such of a huge problematic situation arising in Nepal, so which had to be controlled as soon as possible. Otherwise, it was a big situation which would lead to a very problematic case. After that, on the 9th of September, the president of Nepal, the prime minister of Nepal, which is the KP Sharma Oli, if I'm not wrong, his name was KP Sharma Oli, KP Oli. So basically, he resigned on 9th of September, which was basically a very like happening news, and which was basically known news. It was going to happen because of all the protest going throughout the country. And like if we see the whole issue, we can know the purpose of the Nepal government of banning all these social media apps. What they said was basically fraud and hate speech and misleading news spreading throughout the social media platform. And if they don't have a license office in the country, it is difficult for them to control these speech as well as have a bit of authority over the social media apps. So the main reason for them was this, as they specified. But obviously, this is not a excuse to ban all these apps in a very short notice, as 7 days is a no period to make this big of a change. So as they banned, and people started protesting against these and saying shut down corruption and not the social media apps, which is a valid point. Like there was a lot of corruption. The MLAs and the MPs there, like they started showing off the like their money like anything, and their children are like enjoying in the foreign countries, spending a lot of money. But here the citizen and the people and the children of the Nepal aren't finding any education institutions, the jobs, or like any other good healthcare facilities. That's why they have to move on to the other countries, especially in India, like migrate to the India for like study purposes, for education, for jobs, like for everything. The people are just migrating to the other countries, leaving Nepal. Like the facilities are actually very poor, and the Nepal government was facing a bit of a collapse in all these infrastructural situations as well. So the Gen Z people had an agenda that stop corruption and not the social media apps, which was a valid point. And what was the opposing narrative of the Nepal government was, I don't care if 2 or 4 lose their jobs. I mean, if that was the strategy, it was something which had to be taken look upon, because that seemed very kind of unvisualized or unanalyzed strategy, which led to this whole big protest. And after this, if we have to properly analyze this whole situation, like Nepal government had a great initiative, like having a control over the social media platform was something which was very important, because if we don't have a licensed office in one's country, the social media platform have a full authority over what to show, what not to show, and how to control the whole population and the youth, because social media is something which is controlling and has a lot of power in spreading information in the present day youth. So if they don't have a bit of the control over these apps, they will like kind of lose the opportunity to have the good uh, side of a social media and using it in a better way for the youth. So that's a good ideology that they had. They what the strategy they had was actually very productive and nice, which can be implemented uh, very perfectly, but they went into a wrong direction. They took a wrong path. Like having giving a 7 days of duration is actually unpractical, as well as banning them was something which should not have even been in their to do list, like which was something which is very unpractical. Like banning a social media app which is kind of a whole entertainment purpose, spreading of the information, showing off the talent, and like every other thing. Like social media is basically day to day living of a present day youth as well as many people around the world. And if you're banning those social media apps, it is certainly kind of very illogical thing to act upon. like like this sudden reaction of banning all these apps through a central government is not at all imaginable thing, first of all. Okay, apart from these, if we go into the other direction as well, banning the apps, like especially only the American apps, which has to be like imagined upon, like does not it sound like a narrative set by the I don't know, because they banned all the American apps specifically, and not banning a China app which was TikTok, and like many other China apps, they did not ban it. Don't you think that's sound of a very partial information spread by the Nepal government? Because if you had to ban, you should be banning all the apps, but moving on to the side, taking a side of the China in this situation is something which has to be looked upon by the rest of the world and geopolitics. Okay, so that was the one thing. And also there are many possibilities. Like deep state is something which is looked upon. Deep state and the CIA is basically Central Intelligence Agency, which is controlled by the US. And what they have is this agency looks upon the other countries, their situation, their policies, and how they work. Like basically this agency is a secret agency which does not uh, directly link with the central government of the US, but is indirectly helping the whole US to prosper over the world. Like they give information of the other countries and their working and their weak points, their strengths, and what all trigger points are there in a country, so that the US has a bit of the control over each and every country which is there, and they have a kind of a overall knowledge and the situation of a geopolicy and politics. Thus, if you have a complete awareness of all the countries, then it's completely possible that you just want to be a world leader and not a world grower in unity. So that's something CIA does and a deep state does. So that may be a case that is looked upon in this Nepal case, as also happened in Bangladesh. So that's something which is linked. Okay. So one more important thing, if we look closely at what happened in Bangladesh, doesn't it sound very similar to what's happening in Nepal? Like what happened in Bangladesh is the youth people started protesting against the central present government, and the Hasina Sheikh, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh at that time, just flew to India for just saving her life. Like, was it something that real? Because uh, that wasn't something the Gen Z people can do. Like, if they are doing this, there is some trigger point which is happening in them. Like, the same happened in Nepal. Yeah, that was something which should be triggered, because banning social media apps, that too, the main social media apps, like which include a day-to-day chatting like WhatsApp and YouTube, which is our like day-to-day living and day-to-day entertainment purpose. It's kind of a very big trigger point. But to control all these trigger points, there is a there's a thing which is controlling all these, like which I said, maybe the deep state or the CIA is like controlling all these countries trigger point, and they are just making so that the government which is not in support of the US, the government which is not in their love, like not in their support and in their accompanying, have to be dethroned out of the country. The same happened in Bangladesh. The same is happening in Nepal or maybe some other country. If this continues to grow, like India may be the one who is next, because that is happening. Like in Gen Z population, India has a lot of a big strength of the Gen Z population, and if this thing triggers, if the Gen Z people are not thinking rationally, yeah, what they did in the Nepal was accurately right, of protesting against that thing, particular banning the social media apps. But again, taking it to a perspective of a Gen Z, if you're doing this as a protest, this breaking all the rules and regulations, destroying shops, malls, and all, is just a destruction and loss for the own country, right? It's kind of defaming and just making your own economy even weaker. So in that sense, like acting or like reaction to a very big matter should be in a way which is not kind of making a loss for our own country. Okay, now if Nepal people, Gen Z people have to start off like their country once again, they have to first uh, set off these losses first. Like they have made a huge losses, like breaking rules and destroying places, thieves, all the prisoners have been out of the jail there, and a lot of people have lost their jobs, unemployment, uh, and the outsourcing had been reduced from Nepal, as well as the uh, FDIs and investment shares have gone down, and like the whole market has been crashed there because of this protest. So which is basically a loss for the people itself. So the thing should have been more, the reaction should have been more in a rational side rather than on a violent, vigorous, aggressive side. This kind of a negative thing what the Gen Z people did there. So maybe it is kind of a part of the deep state or the CIA, because it is somewhat linked as what happened in the Bangladesh. So that is something we have to look up, and also we need to be checking many of the stats. Like in Nepal, if we look at the statistics, over the past 17 years, 15 governments have been changed. Like it's a very kind of like unreal thing. Like in 17 years, if 15 governments have been changed, it's something the matter have to be looked upon, because if continuously the government is being dethroned, or like they are being like resigned or like thrown out or whatever may be the reason this is happening, it's kind of, it shows like political instability there, and kind of unrest between the citizens as well as the overall administration of the country, together with the country and the geopolitics. So it should be looked up in that. That is something which is not a practical thing which is happening. And again, it is dethroned. Now the new government would be taking up an, maybe with the discretion of the Gen Z people, as there was a very funny case I just got to know that they have made a connection in Discord. Discord is a basically social media app, uh, American app. So basically they have made a group in Discord as Nepal people. I don't exactly remember the name of the group. So in that group, they are just like spreading all the information and the stuff in the group. That is totally fine. They are actually spreading also the news of the like kind of electing the new government. Like they are actually kind of indirectly electing a new government in a social media app. That is something very funny, don't you think? Like, having such big of an administration power and a thing which requires a lot of knowledge as well as process, uh, uh, rules and regulations which has to be followed in the formation of a new government. They're just doing it in a, like, social media. That sounds very silly, but yeah, the interim government have been decided, and most probably the, like, it was, if I'm not wrong, it was Sushila Karki is going to be the interim PM there. Yeah, like, she will be taking on the oath, and our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also congratulated her on this basis. Like, she was already a part there in the government previously in Nepal, and she fought for the corruption and all. So basically, I guess this was the main thing which the Gen Z people thought of making her the interim government. That's something very shocking to do on a social media platform. Like, you're fighting for social media and you're making a solution for this fight through a social media itself. That's nice. And we have some of the stats that 51 people have died through all this protest and all. Approx 1300 people have been injured, and hospitals in Kathmandu have been fully houseful and, like, uh, overcrowded, and everything, the facilities have been super bad, and everything has been destroyed and all. 12,500 prisoners have been escaped. That's really shocking and very traumatizing to hear. So apart from these, if, like, I have to say, okay, so the possible, moving on to the next segment, if I say, what can be the possible impact on Nepal's future, India, and the geopolitics with the whole world. First, on Nepal's future. Nepal's future would be kind of very dark, to be honest, at the present, because they have already incurred a lot of loss, and again gaining the political authority by a different government, as well as properly accepting the rules and regulations and administration there, and after that processing through the growth, after clearing and setting off all the losses which have been already made, like through the destroying of the public property as well as the resources. So that's something very kind of development unrest as well as economic unrest, as the whole economic policy have been uh, destroyed, and the fundings, the FDIs, the investments, PSUs, joint sectors, everything have been completely shaken, and which has to be again regained after the whole process of the loss upsetting, which is kind of a huge process for Nepal have to go through. So if the Gen Z people don't cooperate with the government at the present, and if there is again the unrest thing which may happen, then it's gonna be a very tough future, because you have to grow a lot. Already Nepal is not in a good situation in terms of the economic GDP as well as the infrastructure. It was already very back in terms of all these things, and now it will be even more worse than the past. So it has to go through a good political stability now, as well as the Gen Z people have to cooperate with the government in forming of all these institutions, and a positive growth should be there. If there is a protest or again anything happens like these, the reaction should be more logical and practical than doing any physical reaction in a aggressive way, right? So that was the main purpose of the laws which all happened. So that is something, the future of the Nepal. And also there is political unrest, the economic depression, inflation would be there, and kind of a whole problematic situation for the country of the Nepal. And also there would be many eyes on the country through China, especially because we can already see a small link between China and Nepal in this case. so they may have been in a very bad situation. Thus, China would obviously find a link or the key to get into the country and get the whole place acquired by them in political, economic, or legal manner, which they are already doing so. And if we see through the India's point of view, it's kind of a good as well as it's not a good. It's basically a kind of a bit of bad situation right now, because Nepal has been a kind of good company to India. Like they don't be that good of a friend, but yeah, it's not an enemy, and like they help in a lot of ways, like kind of outsourcing, like traveling away students for studies, higher education, for job opportunities through Nepal to India. So many people come here, and also apart from these, if we say Nepal is a very great, so for India there would be a lot of immigrations now, as already there's a lot of loss. So many people from the Nepal would be coming to the India for kind of jobs, for settlements, for permanent settlements, immigrants. So that is basically a very tough situation for India, because they can't surely allow everyone to just transfer to the India, like a huge population transfer is basically will create a location distress, a geographical distress among the places in India, especially the north and the eastern side. And now, yeah, and also one more bad thing about bad for India is basically this kind of situation, as I already mentioned, happened in Bangladesh. The same is happening with in Nepal. So kind of the whole policy, this whole situation is more or less the same in both the countries, and it may happen to few other countries, and something, and some of the like symptoms we just saw in Pakistan as well. So now, if we see, India is also going through the same situation. It is also not far off from these three countries, and the policies, the people are, and the policies, political thing and economic thing are like almost the same. The rules and regulations are almost same. Basically, India has to be more thought of, more alert in this situation, and Gen Z people especially should be more logical, more towards country's perspective, and not of hearing from some other place that has to be there in the present day people and the Gen Z in India, if the same situation they don't want to arise, because that's a lot of possibility, a big possibility, just mark my words, that it may come into the India and can happen, because India has got a lot of population, kind of 143 crores at present, which is not a very easy job to handle all these people if they come into the situation what happened in the Bangladesh and Nepal. And lastly, if we see what can be the possible case of a geopolitics of or a global level, like many countries, especially like China, trying to be focused, getting control on Nepal. They just see Nepal as a political unrest and economical unrest right now. So they see as a patch or a path of getting into the Nepal, and like controlling over the trade practices, economic policies, legal, political, everything. So it's kind of a very bad situation for Nepal at present. But other countries, especially India, have to be more alert and arise of the future that may happen, whatever may be happening. So, yeah. So in this whole case, if just lastly, if my own views, what is my own analysis, is if we say in Nepal, if we take from the brick, they just banned 26 of the social media apps, and especially it was all American, and they did not ban the China apps. Okay, so it was the first sign, and after that, whatever happened, and this that, we can see through the years, as well as the government of the Nepal. It was a CPI government. The KP Oli was from CPI. So basically, it is clearly aligning with the China's perspective, China's interest. Okay, So we can say in a short um basis that China is taking control. China is taking control as a whole of the Nepal and trying to put its implication and governance on the soil. And on the opposite side, if we see of the protest which are happening, which is of the CIA or the deep state, which may be the reason, whatever may be the reason, as happened in the Bangladesh as well. So all these things are linked with somewhat USA, because CIA is something of a US agent. So what we see is basically not exactly the Nepal government, CPOD Nepal government versus the Gen Z citizens of Nepal. On upper hand, it is basically China versus the US. That is the whole geopolitical war which is happening through the years and still going on, and maybe in the future will still go and just create more histories through all these uh, lines, through all these pages of the history books. Now what I'm saying is, the whole thing again comes to the two big entities of the world, which is China this side and US this side, which are both the superpowers, and both are at an equal rate of the economy of the world, as well as the control, power, the war, like everything. They both are at a par, and they have a war going on directly, we know that, and indirectly through all these places in Bangladesh and Nepal, which you are just seeing right now. So what is happening? These underdeveloped countries, or like poor countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, they're getting targeted by these two, especially countries, because these two countries are at a global power right now. They are superpower. So they are just trying to getting the control of the other small countries, because the thinking or the mentality of like global power, or being a single leader, is still going on through the developed countries such as US and China now. So between these two global powers, they are just fighting a war, and we all as small countries are just being getting targeted from them. Okay, so that's the whole thing happening. They just want to like get capture of a small underdeveloped country under their control, and the same is doing, like the same is happening in Nepal right now. The China is wanting to control the situation, control everything, as banning the US apps, and like banning the trade and all with the US, and like uh, promoting the China apps, trying China trades and borders, and like every culture and everything. But US, again with the help of its own control, its own deep state, CIA, has been backfiring them and trying to fight back against the situation, kind of fighting between the two global entities, big powers, just resulting in the poor situation and the state of underdeveloped countries even becoming even worse. So getting captured in this whole loop is actually very easy, and a country like India can be a target next for these entities. Like we know that US President Donald Trump is also kind of a good friend to our Prime Minister, and also now in the ICU summit in China, we see Xi Jinping is also kind of handshaking with our Prime Minister. So basically, it's kind of very uh, physical, or like the outer friendship which we are just seeing, but inside it is very deep, and the fights are still going on. So understanding this is actually a very tough thing for the whole people and the geopolitics, and it's not that easy. It's not all that easy. So in my case, this whole power thing will be going on, and India have to be more alert, because it's a very fast growing economy, and the GDP is very high, everything is very good. So it has to be more alert, as these two entities will surely, and like is targeting India. As we know, Donald Trump started with the tariff for, which is 50% of tariff is just implemented on the country, and now as India is going stronger. It responded with a strong comeback, and the situation is pretty controlled right now. But we have to be more alert. It will be happening. And yes, what I would say is, uh, I just am ending this situation and the whole matter of the Nepal here. If I get any more information, I won't go much into. I did not go much into the stats because that's not much of importance right now, because there are a lot of deaths, protests, and everything. But what we mainly had to know is why was this happening and what was the whole scenario behind this. And we got to know, yes, the big two superpowers are the thing, are the situation who is handling this whole country conflict, and what and why India should be aware of the situation, and what may be the possible future of Nepal and any other country which has already been targeted of, such as Bangladesh, or maybe in target, such as India, have to be facing and should be faced off. So that is it from my side about this topic. Yeah, this was Dinesh signing off.